In this video, we are going to demo some of the commands you saw at the beginning of Module 2, Introduction to Linux. So now you've seen some of the commands, let's go through and actually use those in the Linux operating system. So at the Ubuntu, you hit Control-Alt-T, you can open up the command line. The command ls will list the files and directories in the current directory. cd changes directory, so if you go over to your master workspace, cd dot dot just goes up a directory. And then there is tab completion, so if you did cd and then started with robotics, RO, or master, and then hit tab, it should complete that for you. ls-la, it lists with some flags that gives you more information. On the left there's access control. And then, so let's go into our source directory. We can list what's in there. Let's go into our ICE directory, list what's in there. Go one more down to source. And if you hit pwd, that'll show you the current directory you're in and all the root directories behind it. And if you just did cd without any other following directory, that takes you back to your root directory. So let's make a directory. So the command make dir, mkdir, make directory, allows us to make a directory called testing. We can go into that directory, we can come out of it, and then we can remove it. So when removing a directory, you have to use the -r, which is recursive. That will remove all the files within that directory. So let's go into our workspace and let's go into our source directory, ice1 source, and we got nothing in there right now. So we can create a file if we click the touch. And we can see here we can create the file chat publisher. And if we look, we have read and write capability. Let's create the subscriber. Again, both of those are just read and write permissions, but we can change our permissions. So since those are scripts, we want them to be executable. So if we use the change mod plus X, and the star is the wildcard. So basically what we're saying is change anything that ends in .py or a Python file to executable in that folder. You can use the cat command to see what's inside that file, and nano is an editor, so we can do nano and the name of the file. And we can just type some stuff at the top, so you can use the hashtag bang, and if we use cat now, we can see that that command is in the top of the file. And that would list everything in the file if there was more information in it. So cat's just a way to take a look at what's in a file. Clear clears your terminal, allows you to see, just kind of have everything nice and clean. Alright, ifconfig. So now we're getting into some of the network stuff. So we can see this Ubuntu machine is connected to the Wi-Fi, and it has an IP address of 192.168.1.5. So that's important when we're working with our Raspberry Pis, just to figure out what is the IP address. We'll use that to help the information communicate. Ping is a way to just see if something is reachable on the network. So we can ping google.com. I have another computer here at 101. I could ping it. If it wasn't available, so 99, we can see there's no computer with a 99. It's not able to reach it. So that gives us some idea if our different systems are able to talk to each other. So our robot and maybe our master. All right, SSH. So SSH is a way to, it's called secure shell. It's a way to basically log into a remote computer. So we're logging into a Raspberry Pi at 192.168.1.101, and we use pi, so the user or the username at the IP address. So SSH user at IP address, and you can type who am I to see who am I. So on this left terminal, I am actually logged into that Pi. So that's not the Ubuntu machine, that's the Pi. And we can see the IP address, and that one's actually connected not to Wi-Fi, but it's connected to the Ethernet. So if we look up here, we can see our Ethernet port, and then it's connected to 192.168.1.101. This is actually one of the Raspberry Pis connected to the 3D printer. So there's some other capabilities we can do as well. So say we go into our ICE1 and we see our chat subscriber, and we want to move that to the Raspberry Pi. You can use chat publisher, sorry. You can use your secure copy command. So we're going to make a test directory on the Raspberry Pi. On the Ubuntu, where I have my chat publisher, I'm going to copy that to my Raspberry Pi. So I use pi at 192.168.0.101. We can, 1.101. We can see that from the IP address of the Pi. And then we need to figure out where do we want to put it. So let's go into our test directory and look at what that whole root directory looks like. And so I'm going to put it in there, and I can type, the password. The password for your Pis is Raspberry, and we can see now that the chat publisher has been moved. It's just been copied, so there's still one on our Ubuntu machine, but it is over there. And so we took the chat publisher from our master machine and copied it to our robot, for example. So let's delete that directory, and we hit exit to go back to our Ubuntu machine. So now so for you guys, that would go back to your master machine. I wanted to show, so let's SSH back into there. So again, it's SSH username at the IP address. So let's create a file on the Raspberry Pi, so on the robot. So let's create another directory test. Let's go in there, and let's touch a file. Because you can also, so for my Ubuntu machine, what I can do, so let's put some information into, so echo allows you to just kind of basically echo that testing the test pipe, and then the two arrows pipes it into test.txt. So I take the output of my echo command, which would be that string, and put it into the test.txt, so we can see that with the cat command that it's in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that test file from the Raspberry Pi to my own computer, which is at 1.5. So let's make sure we can reach it first. Oh, and I can actually pipe the output of any command into a file. So I'm just piping the output of that ping into test.txt. And we can see now it's just added the results to the bottom. I have communication with my machine, so we can now copy the file. So let's see, we have test.txt. So on the Ubuntu machine, I'm going to copy, and the way it works is SCP, the source, and then the destination. So the source is going to be the Pi at 192.168.1.101, the test.txt file, which we got the root directory to. Then we're going to store it at the current directory, which is that dot. The dot just means the current directory. And now we can see on my Ubuntu machine, I have the test.txt. So you can copy from one machine to another, or from, like say I'm on my Ubuntu machine, I can copy from my Ubuntu to the Pi, but also while I'm on the Ubuntu, I can copy from the Pi back down to my Ubuntu. So you can copy both ways, and that just gives you some good capability when you're working on that remote robot that's on the ground running around. You can still send files to it. You can update your scripts, and you don't have to, you don't have to connect it to a monitor. You don't have to do anything with a USB stick or anything like that. You can just use SCP. So those were some of our network commands and file commands in Linux. Let's take a look at some of the commands that are provided to us by ROS. So we can search and do different things within ROS that makes it a little bit easier to find packages and nodes and stuff like that. So let's take a look at some of that. So if you use ROSpack find and then ICE1, that'll find packages and show you where that package is. So that's in a robotics workspace for you, master workspace. And we can use ROSpack depends to see what that package depends on. So ICE1, we remember that it depended on, we added ROSB and standard messages, but it also, ROS, when we build a package, especially using by cat can create package, it adds in a lot of those standard packages as well. So we have ROSB and standard messages, but we also have a lot more. And we can go straight to that package instead of doing, CD, master, source, blah, blah, blah. We can just do ROS CD and go straight to that package that we're interested in. Alright, so we have our chat publisher and chat subscriber, and we made them executable. And we can edit those using ROS edit. So that allows us to get in there and edit there. So it looks like I haven't set up my editor. So ROS ed, then the package, and then the node or the script we want to change. So let's go through and update our editor so that we can have it set up. So again, we're going to update that bash rc. That's the file that's ran every time the terminal is opened. So let's open up that. And we have to use sudo because it is a system file, and sudo just gives us that capability. So yours might already contain the editor. I think I've updated that for you guys. I need to add it to mine. So it's just the export, which export just means add this to the, so my ROS master URI, we're going to set that to hostname every time the terminal is open. And for this one, we're going to set the editor every time the terminal is opened. So let's open up a new terminal. Again, Control-Alt-T. And now if I use that ROS edit, ICE1 is the package, and then the node or script I want to do is chat publisher. Now I can edit that. And to edit, you can just type, and then for Nano, it's Control-X, and then it'll ask if you want to save it, and you hit Y, and then you're good to go. ROS ls, so you can see I'm in my root directory, but I can still see what's in my package by doing ROS ls instead of just ls. And if I do ROS ls ICE1 and then source, I can see what's inside that source package. So that's a brief overview of some of the Linux command line tools and capabilities. We saw how to change files, change directories, list what's in there, remove files, copy files, network stuff, so pinging a host, SSH, copying, and then some basic stuff with the ROS command. Your homework tonight will be to take a look at the Linux tutorial, which will cover some of the same stuff you just saw, but go into a lot more detail. You can also Google anything you need. There's things called manual pages or man pages that provide a lot more information on all of the Linux commands. So there's definitely a lot of resources out there. Take some time to learn them, but you'll learn as you go, so don't stress too much about it. And eventually you become what they call a command line ninja, where you can do all kinds of piping and outputting. So it becomes very useful. So take the time. Hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully you have some fun.